What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. There is this show called Pluribus that I've been watching, and oh my, does it leave me seizing with joy and hanging on the edge of my seat with every episode. Or should I say, it leaves a we hanging on the edge. Or us. We. I like focusing on the thematic connections within a story and using my handy dandy notebook to infer which route the story might take. Let's peel back the layers of Pluribus to dig into its message behind individuality versus a collective hive mind. We know that no one wants to be the weird kid, that neighbor's kid your parents tell you to go play with outside who licks Play-Doh for breakfast.
You want to choke each other at the same time and see which one of us passes out first?
Pluribus, at its base, is actively exploring the relationship between individual identity and collective identity, toiling with this framing of the hive mind and forcing the audience to consider the merits of collectivism versus individualism. Just to refresh, the world of Pluribus undergoes a mass shift in its structure with the release of what we believe to be some type of virus using an RNA signal transmitted from outer space. When someone infected with the virus decides to give some McLovin with their mouth munchers, the host transmits the virus. It's kind of like crabs or HIV. Not that I would know. The virus essentially envelops damn near the entire population on Earth, allowing the infected to collectively plug into its hive mind machine. The plane of individuality is shut out completely with the exclusion of the protagonist Carol and a few individuals who found themselves immune of its effects. So collectivism is essentially the idea of emphasizing the welfare and interests of a collective group or community over individual desires, which promotes the idea that individuals should prioritize the needs of the group and work towards shared goals, values, and ethics. Individualism is the perspective of prioritizing autonomy, rights, and freedom of individuals. It follows the schema of each person being able to possess their own internal values and ideals and the ability to make independent choices and pursue their own goals. It recognizes the contributions of each individual to a society. Carol is obviously the marker of individualism within Pluribus. Even from episode 1, we see that her persona is completely divergent from the other survivors who decided to congregate and meet each other. Though Carol is emotionally sensitive to anything relating to the hive mind due to them hijacking her friend's memories and their succession, leaving her friend Helen and others to boogie woogie to their deaths, these high-octane emotional outbursts are typically triggered by an innate reaction to preserve her free will and protect the identity that is Carol, the identity that makes her Carol. The hive mind, this virus, makes a sole promise to the survivors, which they themselves contradict with their own motivations. Your life is your own. Bullshit. It's a trap. That's cap. If you look at a lot of the characters within Pluribus, namely the survivors, only Manuoso and Carol are stitched tightly to this individualism sort of prefecture, as far as we could see from now. The other 10 individuals that Carol met at this airport are looming in this gray field of collectivism. I should say it's collectivism with the one concentric goal of complacency. Seeing as how the hive mind has this goal to infect everybody, offering them short-term luxurious relief as they figure out how to expunge the individualism of those who are not a part of the hive mind yet. This within itself is a betrayal of the hive mind's mantra, your life is your own. That's the contradiction. Rejecting the collective identity is what lies at the core of Carol's character. Everything she does, everything she's done has been to reject the status quo, even if it was erratic, unstable, and caused a loss of life in pursuit of protecting that freedom. I think we've seen enough grenades blown up in our face to know that the hive mind's goal is not to let their life be their own. Otherwise, they would not be seeking the means to cast a genjutsu and trap them in their infinite Tsukiyomi. Generally, the idea of life being your own appears to be a red herring or distraction in Pluribus, a trap which the hive mind sets to lure in the lucky few who survive the excavation with a handful of luxuries and offer the world to them in this near term, simply to buy time until the hive mind can figure out how to purge their individualistic qualities by forcing them to join them. Laxmi, Jume, and other survivors of the hive mind virus in Pluribus are more afraid of losing their loved ones than they are their own individuality. It's almost as if they are being held hostage by this fear of something happening to their loved ones, or maybe even losing the makeshift illusions of them that call them to stay present. So they view the life as this ticking time bomb, and they're simply working against a timer that set the blow. Think about how nuts this is, right? The hive mind infects the family members of some of the individuals who survived the virus. One such individual even losing her grandfather's life after he had a seizure while driving and crashed due to Carol's crash out. And Carol was indeed crashing out. In fact, her crash out made him crash out. Yet Carol's emotional crash was solely blamed for the casualty, while ignoring the very species or virus responsible for placing that burden on the family members in the first place and leaving them in that sort of zombie-esque state. The survivors practiced collectivism, which in this specific group appears to have formed a union of complacency where the shared goal is merely latching on to watch little fragments of themselves taper away versus fending off against the threat. They are their own hive mind, though not in the literal sense. It's not a matter of what if we lose our individuality, but a matter of cherishing what little individuality is left lingering before inevitably succumbing to the hive mind. And it does present as if these individuals believe such a fate is inevitable, with, of course, Kumba living his best life and taking his fill of whatever he's being exposed to, whatever luxuries are offered. Free expression and individualism are required to maintain equilibrium with the mass casualties of collective identity within the world of Pluribus. A rift was sown between Carol and the other survivors after the initial meeting. Even the initial meeting itself, convened by the hive mind, was likely to get the survivors to adhere to the planetary circumstances at large and accept the Earth's new order of operations and governance under one mind and one rule. Carol rebukes the hive mind's forward disposition, knowing they could be displaying false bravado up until some point in which the hive mind abruptly decides to flip on her and the others. This collective identity, this hive mind which already has amassed billions into its corner by force, don't forget that by force, makes Carol feel as if she's the one who's losing her mind when others forfeit their life for her expressing her own individuality. Since she is one of the only survivors posing some semblance of a defense against the hive mind containment virus, there's a subtle but brutal soft invitation that entraps humanity within the world of Pluribus, entraps the survivors. One that persuades them from seeking out anything other than the bliss they've been promised is associated with becoming a part of the hive mind. Your life is your own. Regardless of wordplay, standards don't emerge and promises aren't enforced when they are echoed in the absence of action. For those latched within the clutches of the hive mind, the specters and victims of humanity within the hive mind cannot be addressed as one singular unit, as the union of their minds is driven by the virus that is us, or we, which makes the most streamlined decisions and efficient choices to maintain the stability of authorship. No privacy, no personality, just us, just we, just you or I, until we can make you a part of us. The hive's actions are inconsistent with their words, thus they can't be trusted. Your life is your own, a dystopia that's veiled in the cascade of a utopia. I predict it will be one of the biggest lies we will see slowly unfurl as we come near the terminal end of the season. Collective identity from the hive mind is portrayed as world order, peace, and stability within Pluribus. No crimes are committed, no one can tell a lie. The hive can extract from a wealth of knowledge and perform skills of trades with professional grade expertise without their own person ever having personally practiced it themselves. However, their individual personality is corrupted and forced into glaring optimism, no matter the circumstances, leading to apathy and a lack of human compassion for the dead, and the deficiency in authenticity. Carol's resistance in preserving her personal attributes and individualism will ultimately become a source of conflict with the hive mind's shared societal goal of everlasting peace and bliss. That could possibly be why they actually gave her a live grenade. Or not, it's her passion for protecting those traits that lead to her disdain and outbursts against the hive mind. This maintains the equilibrium between mass blind hysteria and a grounded sense of uniqueness where the contributions of each individual are measured fairly. One thing we could say for certain is, though Carol is little out of many, her actions do make a contribution and impact in the vast world of Pluribus. Damn, are we shooting up already, Carol, on episode 4? Save some snow and snatch for the rest of us. Episode 4 of Pluribus proposes that tokens of individualism are present within the collective identity. Through Zosha's conversation with Carol, though one might deduce that personality uniqueness is a decisive factor in determining whether such a conclusion can be drawn. Carol and Zosha have this conversation while Zosha is recovering in a hospital bed after the grenade incident. And no more grenades for Carol, or atomic bombs. The substance of this conversation rests on a discussion about snuffing out individuality in order to superimpose an ideal version of a collective society. Carol points out the hypocrisy in the hive mind's position, this idea of allowing them to live their own lives, but at the same time trying to transform them into mindless dolls just like them. This extreme and versatile overcompensating, like the Mario Kart race to stock her sprouts, where the hive mind pulled up in droves to stock an entire store just so she felt like she was shopping in a normal environment. Then there's also not rejecting the idea of giving Carol an atomic bomb to use, which I'm pretty sure no one wants in Carol's hands at all, especially when she's making everyone boogie woogie wriggle to their deaths. There's a complex web of questions that might emerge. Since humans were the priority species, the sole intelligent life forms, the argument is that their collective identity should persist even when other intelligent life forms emerge. The hive mind sees itself as a separate entity, we, us. This resonance of identity diverges from the individualistic perspective of humanity, which Carol holds. The paradigm that recognizes the autonomy of individuals and the prominence of each individual's contribution to society. The hive mind says we're us, a more perfect and polished version of humanity due to our peer and collective identity and our united mind, our cohesive bonds, and pact to promote our collectivist ideals through mutual pursuit of goals. Carol then proceeds to pill Cosby Zolcia's Ivy line and spurts a dab of Finny or heroin in her vessels in some attempt to disrupt the hive mind connection and find out exactly how to treat the virus, how to cure and reverse this bullshit. This is merely a question of moral dilemmas, right? Zolcia's position was that Carol was contradicting herself by trying to turn the hive mind back into humans, which to me is a fragile argument, seeing as how the hive mind virus decided to completely inhabit all of humanity and quote unquote help fix the ones who weren't affected by the virus. Pluribus suggests that the collective hive mind mentality has parcels of its framing fragmented and sprinkled buried within this individualistic perspective. We can't deny that Carol is in fact attempting to reverse the hive mind virus for the good of humanity. At least that's what she believes her cause is. The hive mind believes that its presence is required for such tranquility to exist. So within the coming episodes, perhaps we'll find a decisive answer for which identity takes precedent and what determining factor gives one party precedent over the other. What does the good for humanity even mean, and who gets to decide that? I'm curious to find out. Taking a deeper look at how the individualist and collectivist identities are portrayed within Pluribus, I believe Kumba is a unicorn with regard to these collectivist and individualistic identities. He's the most likely to take drastic action for sure in order to preserve his position and status with the hive mind, but I want to lay out a prediction for what might occur to the other survivors within the story based on the ever-evolving conflict between individualistic identity and collectivist identity pushed forward by Carol and the hive mind respectively. Carol is the unfaltering diamond, right? The architect of I will not succumb to the hive and lose who I am. I will scratch and claw to find out how to revert this hellish nightmare. We'd also be remiss to ignore what was gained and what was lost amongst the survivors after the virus attacked. Kumba had no family ties from what I can remember, nothing to lose, so for a man like that, having a bunch of hot hive virus women skulking up to you at the snap of your fingers, complete life inversion, which would then mean he's detached from society, and as long as he's not affected, he won't care to foresee a maladaptive outcome of the hive virus. Laxmi is already too attached to her family and has inferred that she asked the hive mind what it was like to be taken, perhaps finding comfort and feeling as if the end game would result in her being one with her family. The issue, however, is that we've seen time and time again that there's no individualism once you are attacked by the mind virus. You become a part of this we-us triangle. Think about this. Have you seen an actual cohesive, functional family unit outside of the survivors who have been taken by the hive mind? No, the hive mind is likely simply keeping the family in the state because it keeps the survivors in a state of comfort and complacency. Yet if they were to get turned into the hive mind, what need would there be to direct those family members to practice affection to one another? There would be absolutely none, which is why Carol's erratic approach in preserving individualism by searching for a way to destroy the hive mind virus is of a great importance. Though she can be annoying sometimes, she can see what others don't. Mindless puppets, a part of one mind, one acting to appease the survivors until they don't have to anymore. I believe that most of the survivors are going to get turned, with the exception of Monosis and Carol, who are likely to meet sometime in the coming episodes. It's extremely likely that Carol will disturb the other survivors who have grown complacent with the conditions. I believe there was even foreshadowing where the hive mind said they could not protect the humans from hurting each other. It's likely Kumba or other parties will go after her at some point. She manifests a breakthrough and sows a fissure through the collectivism agenda. and perhaps makes a breakthrough towards finding out how to reverse the virus. Its hive mind calls forward collectivist ideals and veils its true intentions by bouncing a carrot on a stick against the survivors' heads, luring them toward complacency and perhaps even toward developing a point of attachment. What's sure is that the mind virus will find a way to fix the survivors in the coming future. And when that time arrives, the survivors must be able to make a choice to either fall in the wings of mindless illusion or protect the authenticity and scarcity of their minds, personalities, and memories. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Pluribus so far and what you believe of this idea of individualism and collectivism. Is Carol right? Is the hive mind right? Do you hate Carol as a protagonist? If you want more analysis of your favorite characters or fictional worlds, go ahead and smash that like button, turn on that notification bell, and subscribe for more. This channel is ever evolving and will continue to grow to appeal to the audience at large. Remember that the direction of progress is forward and it's only up from here. I will leave a link to my socials in the description below. And with that, remember, if ever you're lost in the forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world. And there, your mind will run free.